Hello, and welcome everybody to Satanic Study Hall. Class is now in session. It is great to finally be recording, as getting a bunch of Satanists together in the same place at the same time is rather difficult. So however you found us, I want to thank you for listening and thank you for your initial support. My name is Bill Rohr, and today I am joined by Johnny Voorhees and Joseph Rose. Johnny's band is featured in our podcast intro and outro, and Joseph is the founder of the group that brought us all together, Satanic Delco. Now, because of that group, I went from having no real Satanist friends to developing an ever-growing network of them in a matter of months. We'll definitely talk more about that later, and I'm glad that these two degenerates are here with us today.
I mean, you know what's funny about that is I was thinking about that when I joined the group. I said, wow, I never knew that there were so many of us in such a close proximity.
Yeah, Johnny, I was the same way. I was surprised with that as well. The sheer amount of people alone who nearby, within miles of me, who were members of the temple or just shared, the same beliefs blew my mind. I was completely unaware. Now, in the same regards, in talking about like-minded people, we would love to hear and meet our listeners. Whenever you have a question, a comment, a concern, or you want to yell at us if we fuck up, you can do that at satanicstudyhall@gmail.com. Send us an email, or you can visit any of our social media where we can be found under Satanic Study Hall. So this is what we are calling our introductory episode. It's a quick roll call of some of our rotating podcast members and contributors, where we come from in regards to religion and Satanism. This is going to be a forum for myself and fellow Satanists and degenerate friends who will journey through Satanism from its inception to modern day. We'll dive into news and entertainment through the eyes of modern Satanism, talk shit to each other, have fun, and educate each other. We will be discussing and actively participating in activism and charitable events, and encourage any and all of our nearby listeners to join us in our efforts. Now, something that I'm real excited about is Satanism in music. Now, this is a segment that Johnny is going to spearhead, and he's going to take us through satanic-related albums, or just albums with a dark and twisted history or feel, artists, and everything related. In fact, the first album that we'll be talking about is going to be Twin Temple's Satanic Doo-Wop, which I gotta say is sexy as fuck. It was not what I expected it to be, and it has made its way onto my daily playlist. Now, we're set on a study hall platform where the agenda is going to be free-flowing. It's going to be open and ready to go wherever the conversation and podcast takes us. We will try to be topical, but no guarantees as far as how far into certain topics that we will, as we're going to have a lot to say, and we're trying to provide a unique lens to look through when it comes to looking at the world, and that goes back to talking about modern Satanism. Now, personally, from my experiences, I fucked around in high school way too much. I wasted a lot of time, barely graduated. Study hall to me was either a second lunch or a time to smoke weed at the Ithaca Falls. I rarely ever went, but I do have to say the high school period for me is when I made my official transition to, the dark side. My eyes were opened, the questioning authority really kicked in, and high school really was that transition for me. What about you, Joseph?
My high school experiences did more to shape who I am, and probably aimed me directly at Satanism than it did any more traditional educational type.
Johnny?
I mean, my problem was I was a nerd. So I used study hall to my advantage. I would do homework, or I would, study for a test, or I would work on a project that we had to turn in. So study hall for me, I took it serious. Yeah. I didn't fuck around. I didn't cut it, which I probably should have looking back on it because it was stupid. We actually had a graveyard right across the street from where I went to high school. So
I did create my fair share of satanic themed artwork all through study halls and art classes and, anything like that. So
you can expect to hear us bi-weekly We debated a weekly format, but we want to make sure that we put everything we have into not only just having fun, but into the content piece of things. So new episodes will drop bi-weekly upon the launch of our intro, Sundays at 11 a.m. And you can find that on all major podcast platforms or by going directly to satanicstudyhall.com. That's also an outlet. You can find all of our various social media platforms. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and we have a Patreon. We'll talk more about that. We have a couple of blind faith followers that have decided, so thankfully so, to donate to us and support us even before our launch. So we'll definitely shout them out at the end of the episode here.
That is true support.
Isn't it? And when I said blind faith, like, and I think I've done that a few times before in the past, but it's when you see that going into something like this being the first time I personally have done anything like this since I was in college at 20 years old. It's reassuring.
Right.
It also makes me nervous as fuck.
Me too, because I've never done anything like this before.
Yeah. Once people have paid their real money, you owe them.
Yes, it's serious now.
So as far as who we are, there will be a rotating cast of degenerates joining Satanic Study Hall on a bi-weekly basis. Me personally, my name is Bill. I am from a small town, Ithaca, New York. I was born and raised I guess you could say Catholic with a little bit of mix of Presbyterian sprinkled in. Parents were a little torn. I was spoon-fed to church with my neighbors. My parents never took me. It was, let's get rid of the kids on a Sunday. So, well, I guess I'll say it. Sorry, Mom and Dad, so we can spend some intimate time together. I think they know I'm well aware of what they were up to.
It was just childcare.
Yeah, absolutely. The church served as childcare, and whether it was the neighbors across the street, the more time I spent in church, the more options my parents had as far as people to dump me on. So thanks, Mom and Dad, if you're listening. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Religion never really made sense to me. If anything, it angered me that people would put so much of themselves into the supernatural. And even growing up, through my evolution from the church that I was subjected to, and then slowly becoming the anarchists, and then the anarchist turned into just a boring atheist, and not really putting any of my time and effort into something that I do believe in. And obviously now, as a member of the Satanic Temple, we have the 7 tenets, and those 7 tenets alone since 2014 have changed me. Joseph?
Was there a time when, even as a kid, I guess it's easy as a kid, you start off believing what you're told. You're told a story, you kind of believe it. You believe in Santa Claus, you believe in the Easter Bunny, you believe in Jesus, you believe in all these stories. Was there a moment where you kind of shifted? Or like, wait a goddamn minute, I don't think this is true, maybe.
It was almost like the dominoes falling one by one as each one unraveled, whether it was the Tooth Fairy or Santa Claus, Easter Bunny. To me, it was all the same fantasy. And I think that, like, the separation of all the childhood rituals that we in the holidays, I think that kind of opened my eyes and allowed me to kind of be like, apply that same thought concept to religion. And just like I said, it was the one domino falling after another.
How old were you when you kind of settled into, this is not for me?
That was about 12.
Oh, yeah.
12 or 13. That was when I just started overall, did the whole question authority thing, like asking why. It wasn't the 5 W's, it was just simply why. Like,
the most dangerous question.
Facts, data, give it to me. I was hungry, you know what I mean? I was also a dickhead.
Well, I mean, you were a lot younger than I was when I started questioning faith, because I'm pretty much the way you were. I was raised Catholic. I was baptized Catholic. I went to church every Sunday with my mother. And then I stopped for a while. And maybe when I was 12 or 13, I started going to a Presbyterian church. The services between a Catholic church and a Presbyterian church are apples and oranges.
Really?
Yeah. They, the Catholic, with the pipe organ and the chanting.
The Catholics are way more ritualized, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just the way they talked and everything. And I mean, the Presbyterian, when I went there, I mean, they had like a live band. they had drums and guitars and electric guitars, and and I was well, I still am, but I mean, I was really into rock, and I was just starting to get into music pretty heavy, and it blew my mind, and it kind of brought me into that phase.
Yeah.
I mean, I started to, like, it opened my eyes. I was like, wow, you can actually worship like this, and it's not a sin. Like I said, if you brought that to a Catholic church, they'd be like, get out of here. We don't do that. We don't do that stuff here.
Yeah.
The Catholic Church only knows you when you pay them. You don't give them any money. They don't give a fuck about you. But unless you have a little kid, but we won't touch on that. But I started going to youth group because I was I don't want to say a bad kid, but I wasn't the best kid. Yeah. And I was starting to get into trouble. I was starting to hang around with the wrong crowd. I started stealing things, and my mother found out about it. She was like, well, you better get your ass in gear, or, you're going away. You're going away. That's it. I can't take it anymore. So I lived across the street from my friends, and they were like, well, why don't you come to youth group with me? I was like, I don't know why.
Youth group.
Yeah.
I used to go to Awana on Tuesday nights.
I don't know about that. But I went, and it was okay. I mean, it wasn't the greatest thing, but when I went and they were like, well, why don't you come to a service? Okay. So that's what I said. I went to that service, and I was like, wow.
Get their hooks in.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. And I mean, right after it was over, like, the pastor was like, we want you to become a member.
Don't waste any time.
Yeah, they didn't waste any time. It was like, I'd love to see you be a member of the church. And I never did, but I became a regular, but I never was a member.
Yeah, any new church I ever went into, whether I was like going to support a friend during a concert or something growing up, the adults, the members of the church have a laser focus for strangers. They pounce on you. Like,
yeah, they do.
It's wild.
They do.
Like, literally, like, sometimes corner you. They'll walk up to you with like 8 brownies on napkins and some juice and get you into a corner and start asking you to accept the Lord Jesus Christ as your
Well, it's
Savior.
funny you mentioned that, because they did that too. Like, after the service was over, like, they would have like a little get together, because the church that we went to had like a basement, and that's where they would set everything up at.
And these weird little hand-picked meetings, being
Yeah.
like, all right, yeah, let's shower them with compliments and brownies
Yep.
in hopes they'll show up on Sunday.
Yeah, the youth group, they called it Crossfire, and I mean, it was okay.
It's like what I
it was
do.
fun.
It's like what I do, only with weed and Black Sabbath.
I like your youth group better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you eventually, like, where did it sort of take a turn away from the church?
I mean, when I was in high school, my friend, he was pretty heavy, hardcore Christian, and he just one day just changed. He was like, oh, I don't want to be Christian anymore, and this and that. It's just a bunch of bullshit. And I was like, dude, how can you be like that one day and like this the next? And he pushed a book into my chest, and he was like, read this. And it was the Satanic Bible.
Of course. Of course.
So I read it, and what scared me was I agreed with a lot of it.
Yep.
And that's when the wheels started turning. Because I mean, I just want everybody to know that when it came to believing in God, I really tried. I really did try.
I did as well.
I tried to believe that there is a God who loves me very much, created me in his own image. I mean, I just can't get past the whole, if you love somebody, why would you torture them and send them to hell if they don't believe in you?
The more I read the Bible, like I said, the angrier I got, and the more hypocrisy and just bullshit I sniffed.
I grew up on and off with my mom, so various combinations of my mom and my grandparents, consistently with my grandparents. And they were, at best, casual churchgoers. They were religious, like your regular old person that you might run into, but it wasn't a huge, important part of their life. There wasn't a lot of serious religious talk or anything going on. But they would go, and they would occasionally drag me along. And I was a little kid. I didn't think much about it in this way or any way other than this is going to be fucking boring and I don't want to go. And no, I don't want to wear those fucking pants. And this is going to suck. And is it over yet? And you couldn't put a kid in a more just unfun situation than church.
Yep.
But I would do it here and there. And I was simultaneously growing up in the care of my mother, who was a young mom and wildly inappropriate generally. So every movie I shouldn't have been watching and every record I shouldn't have been listening to, I was getting them straight from my mother. And, you know, along with that came a real influential sort of sense of rebelliousness. You know, that was a part of my personality from as early as I can remember. You know, all I needed to see was enough images of Wasp and Motley Crue and shit like that. That's all I needed. So some of my earliest memories literally are of little me with sidewalk chalk drawing pentagrams out front of the neighbor's house next door who I knew were religious. And I hardly knew what a fucking pentagram was. All I knew was that it upset them. And that was kind of cool and fun.
Yeah, that was fun.
I drew
too.
pentagrams before I knew what pentagrams were.
Yeah, yeah.
It was amazing.
I saw the Shout at the Devil album cover, and I was fucking in. Whatever this is, it's way better and way more fun than what goes on at church. And so that was the first step. And later on, I had some directly. I mean, should I tell it? Should I tell a tale?
Sure.
Please do. Let's hear it.
So I often cite this as maybe an inciting incident for me definitely becoming a Satanist eventually. I grew up mostly without a dad. My dad was way in the background, not really involved, never lived with him, didn't see him that much. Every once in a blue moon, for no occasion that I could figure out, he would come and pick me up for the day, and we'd go do a thing. And most of the time, this thing was not good or fun. And one day in particular, he brought me to church. Now, I can't even get all into it. I don't even know all the ins and outs of it. But he had himself a strange history with religion. And he was a member of some, I don't know what you could call it other than a cult. I think it was some, I'm going to attempt to learn more about exactly what this was. But it was some sort of extreme, like, Catholicism. In this little church near where I lived, men draped in the traditional brown robes, you know, the monk vibe with the little rope around the waist, hoods, all of that. Creepy as fuck. So he brings me into this little church on this day, and I don't know what's happening. You know, I'm just looking at him, following along as best I can to just, you know, get with the program. And everybody's going up to the altar at the front and doing the thing where you kneel, you accept the body of Christ, you get the little wine, that whole creepy thing. So I'm doing that.
What do they call that? Communion?
Yeah.
Shows you how educated I
Yeah,
am.
the communion wafers and the wine and all. And so my dad has his head sort of down, sort of bowing, and I'm doing the same. And the guy, whoever this is, I don't know, is he a priest? I don't know what this creep was. He comes over, and at the time, again, I'm a little kid. I'm sub 10 years old, pretty young. And I have some kind of weird little hairdo. I had like a little long hair, the beginnings of a mullet or a rat tail or some shit
the
like
rat
that.
tail.
Yeah,
I had some kind of something going on back
Still
there.
better than a Floby haircut.
So my head's down, and this fucker grabs a hold of my little hair back there and like yanks it up pretty stiff. And I'm like, ow, fuck, like this is not cool. And I will never forget. He looks at my dad and says something which included, "He is not an animal," is what they said about me. And I'm just silently thinking, fuck, what the fuck? Fuck you, dude.
So there was confusion to this person that you may have been an animal?
I don't, he was just, this is his way of just shitting on my shitty haircut and my long, inappropriate hair. And so my dad then replies with some sort of light excuse about, well, he's with his mother. I don't really have control, you know, sorry, you know, whatever. So right then and there, fuck this place, fuck all of this, fuck these people. This is crazy and shitty. And so that was a pretty solid nail in the coffin. Right,
I'd say so.
Right there. That was a pretty intense church experience for a little kid to have. In my opinion, I was basically assaulted by this stranger in a creepy robe. And then my dad, rather than defending me and punching this guy senseless, which is what he should have done, he was like, "Oh, sorry, I'm not in control," whatever, like, Fuck
Wow.
all y'all
Did
right
you
now.
regularly attend this place?
No, that was my dad did. I think he was in a whole scene with these. My dad. I never had much of a relationship. I never had these conversations with my dad, but I have some half brothers, one of whom has filled me in a little bit on it. But I should dig in more because I'm just curious because it's so
It
weird.
sounded like that was more of an image thing. He wanted to maintain
Right.
whatever
Yes.
status
Oh, yeah,
amongst
for sure.
his peers
For
or
sure.
whatever.
And again,
yeah.
he hardly knew me. Like we rarely ever hung out with each other. So
I want to revert back to how to find us on the good old internet. We are at satanicstudyhall.com. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and now in an effort to talk a little bit more about our Patreon, I really, really, really want to shout out two members that have given us their full support right off the bat, and that's Tim Allen and Ali Garcia.
Yes, thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much.
That's amazing.
It's definitely putting some faith in us, like you said.
Absolutely. Hail Satan.
Yes,
It's a big hail Satan for that. I truly appreciate it. But as far as the Patreon, we got a lot of fun stuff going on the Patreon. We are offering a couple of different tiers. We have a 99-cent level. That's just an initial level to show your support. We will send you out a pack of Satanic Study Hall stickers. The artwork has been from various members of people who have supported us from the Satanic Delco group. We also have a $6.66 level. And with the $6.66 level, this is when it gets a little cooler. Pencils, erasers, composition book, all with the Satanic Study Hall logo or Satanic Study Hall on them. We got the pencils in, I heard, right, Johnny?
Yes, sir.
How they come out.
Awesome. Black pencils with silver writing. Satanic Study Hall.
And all the artwork you see on our social media has been provided. Johnny, Joseph, Christina has actually, she supplied the t-shirt design that we're rolling with that should be available. I really probably shouldn't say a time, but my goal is the end of August. I should have 1 or 2 different options available in sizes all the way up to 4XL. Definitely essential.
I'm trying my hardest to stay a medium.
Yeah.
I've been drifting into large territory lately.
Well, we're going to dive into all types of different topics as we learn, explore the history of Satanism, just all throughout. And I mean, we're not talking just in the 1900s. We have an episode lined up coming up, hopefully in the first 5, all about Satanic Panic. We did meet in a group, and that group is called Satanic Delco. If it wasn't for this random sponsored ad I saw on Facebook, and 5 minutes later, a friend inviting me to the group. It happened like in succession. And that was by you, Joseph, with Satanic Delco. So could you tell us a little bit about that, what you had in mind when you created it and where you want to go with it?
That's a tough one to pin. Let's see. Where did it start? Like I said, I'm a member of the Satanic Temple. I've been a member of the temple for a few years. I don't remember when I first discovered them and joined up online. But of course, we live in Delaware County, like you said, and we're just, Delaware County is basically suburbs just outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And in the city, there are, like many cities across our country, there are chapters of the Satanic Temple. And in Philadelphia, there isn't currently, as we speak, an official chapter, but there will be in the near future, I think. And that group, there's a group based in Philadelphia, and of course they are friends of the Satanic Temple in Philadelphia. And so I was a member of their group, and I'd been out to a couple of their rituals and meetups in the city. And by that point, it had been on my mind to just one way or another figure out who around me was on the same page. Like, surely there's a bunch of us, but I know that people from where we live sometimes are a pain in the ass about traveling to the city, even though it's not far away. You know how some suburb people can get. They're like, I'm not going to the damn city. You can't get me to drive through that shit.
Yeah, I went through a phase of that myself.
Yeah.
I'm kicking myself in the ass for it currently. But.
Yeah, and there was this whole thriving scene of these cats in the city doing their thing, getting together, having a great time, and having some events. And I just was curious about how that might go for people from, Delaware County, where we live. And so I went ahead and just put together a Facebook group. And my realistic expectation, I always say I expected, 5 or 7 nerds to join. It would peter out by the next week and I would delete it. And that's what I sort of expected to happen, but that isn't what happened. Soon enough, people started finding their way in, and I did some sponsored posts so that I could just get the word out. I didn't even share it to my own Facebook friends at all. I didn't tell anyone I knew about it. I didn't post it online on my personal accounts. I just wanted to, because I didn't want it to be just like my friends that I encouraged to join. Like, let's come in, let's do this.
Open up a Facebook Messenger group chat. And
yeah. So I wanted to find new people. I wanted to see who out there was on the same page, maybe. And I guess long story short, it grew. It grew. We got quite a bunch of people, and here we are. Amen.
So interesting story. while we're talking about the temple and everything, we have a little disclaimer that I could play, but I wanted to say it out loud this time, and just myself. So the podcast is just a bunch of degenerates who just so happen to be members of the Satanic Temple. We are not affiliated with any other satanic organizations. We're speaking for ourselves, and I'm proud of that. The more I'm talking today, the more comfortable I'm getting, and the more excited I'm getting about future episodes.
It'll only get better.
Absolutely. Check out our Patreon, and again, we have some cool stuff at that 666 level. Like us on Facebook, follow us on social media.
You had mentioned before where we met one another, and I met you, Bill.
I forgot about you. Shit, I'm an asshole.
God damn it, Bill.
I went from Joseph to we're wrapping it up by all means, Johnny.
Damn, I shouldn't have said anything.
I apologize for him, John.
I could have gotten out of it.
You could have. I feel
But
horrible.
I met Bill. He hosted a movie night here. It was, oddly enough, the movie was Hail Satan.
Yes, it was.
The documentary about said Baphomet and wanting to set it up where the Ten Commandments are. An interesting note about that documentary that really got me was I found it amazing because there's a scene where they're doing interviews with Satanists, with people who are members of the Satanic Temple, and they're just going through all these people, and they're talking about their experiences and everything. And the one thing that really got me was when I imagine a Satanist, I imagine upside down crosses and pentagrams and tattoos, satanic tattoos, and all black. And, and maybe even corpse paint.
Goth night.
Long black hair.
Goth night.
There was this one guy. I think he was a lawyer or something. And he had on like a suit.
Yes.
With a bow tie. I think it was like a rainbow bow tie.
Yeah, he described himself as a zesty little atheist or something like that. Yeah.
And I was like, wow, I would have never guessed he was a member of the Satanic Temple. He could have walked right down the street by me. He would have said, hey, man, I'm a member of the Satanic Temple. I've been like, yeah, okay, right.
It's wild. But yeah, I mean, watching that movie, I'd be like the third time I saw it on movie night, like you said.
That was my first.
Really, yeah. And it was great. I mean, especially because I think over half the group, it was their first time. So when we broke out, it was weird because we had these little breakout sessions, cigarette breaks, whatever you want to call it.
Great.
And everybody was talking about the movie. And right off the bat, it sparked conversation. And this is the first time. I mean, I invited 11 strangers over.
Yeah.
It's like, all right.
You really took it
like, all right.
to a whole new level.
I said, fuck it, because that's the kind of initiative I think something like this takes.
Exactly.
And you gotta, you lose momentum quickly when you get people together. All right, so it looks like the bell is about to ring, but before that, I wanted to quickly thank you all for joining us today in Satanic Study Hall. Another huge shout out to Allie and Tim for being our first 2 patrons on Patreon. And a huge thank you and hail Satan to Johnny and Joseph for joining us today. I also want to shout out Francesca, or Frankie Gentile, and Dennis Cruson, who are 2 of our resident members of the podcast who will be joining us soon, and Christina Verde for the t-shirt design, which totally kicks ass, and I cannot wait to wear it. So join us next time as we dive into what the Satanic Temple is, what modern Satanism means to us, and a killer review of Twin Temple's Satanic Doo-Wop. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time.
Finally see when the slice of the skin.